So here we are. It's the finale. It's the finale. It's the finale. The shit isn't over after this. No, 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 no. This is just the beginning. And if you've made it this far, and you've been around since part 1, you'll know what this is all about today. I can promise you that. Before I do, get yapping on my own word, let's pull from the bucket. Because I think we have a question from somebody that was mailed in. And right here. The idea of faith and a renewed sense of love. I have no idea what this says on the inside. This was mailed in after a pretty fucked up expedition from the post office to my house, but we got it. What do we have here? And just like we started, closed out, the flower, blue rose. At least that's what I hope it. That's why I hope it is. All right, let's read this together. Since there was no going back for you, no way to simply re-enter your old life, how did you develop, foster, and grow love from inside yourself, enough to feed you and others? How did you stay open to rebuilding any hope, faith, or future plans when life felt bleak and disappointing? Yee. It's a good fucking question. Just like this person came through with the first one, that is a good question. How did you develop and foster and grow love from inside yourself? It felt like nobody else could. It felt like nobody else could love me. I didn't feel love from a lot of people. And I was wrong in a handful of those accounts, but I didn't feel love from a lot of people. To that, I didn't know if I could be loved by people, going beyond, growing into this person. So I looked to the mirror, that reflection, that person, that Mr. Motherfucker. I looked to him and we had a complicated relationship. I didn't know if I could come to peace with him, looking beyond who I was at 13 years old, because I didn't want to lose sight of that 13-year-old, but time goes on. And I had to really accept that. But once I did accept that, love came as an unexpected friend, an unexpected guest. I had to give myself love to continue writing, to continue living into my own story. Yeah, I gave it out to people, and I didn't feel like it was given back to me because I didn't expect it to be given back to me, but there was a point, a long stretch of time, where it felt like it could only be a word, until I got to this point of a forced reflection where I was like, I need to love myself. I need to be at peace with myself. I need to nurture this heart. Because if I abuse this heart, what the fuck is the point? Yeah. How did you stay open to rebuilding any hope, faith, or future plans when life felt bleak and disappointing? Life felt bleak and disappointing because I felt like I was the living fucking dead. I was a zombie, I was a ghost, I was a nightmare, I was a dream. I was a lot of things that wasn't a person. I didn't feel like a human. I didn't feel like you could see me. I didn't feel like I was deserving to be noticed by anybody. I gave endless amounts of time to other people. I gave oxygen to other people who their lungs were healthier than ever. My mind was recovering from the flood. I didn't get to where I am today without giving myself a substantial amount of love. And that was coupled with knowing that life is never going to be perfect, and if I were to expect life to be perfect, life is going to suck. No, I want to bring on the good days with the bad days. I want to acknowledge that I'm born out of trauma, but I can still stand up on stage and say love is the answer. I can still go about in my day and say love is the answer. I can write a love story and then another love story. I can find a real love story someday. And that's all within an imperfect world, because the world will never be perfect. It's not going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's not going to be folly, la, 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 la. No, I'm not going to skip with you through a rolling green field while track 12 plays. No, that's not going to happen. We're going to have good times, but we're going to have bad times too. We can have love. We can have turmoil. That's the deal of life. That's the condition of life. And that comes from being born out of a trauma to where I expected every day to be fucking amazing. With the huge air of ignorance that every day had to be amazing. And anything less was unacceptable. No, being born out of the trauma, I found a way to see the light through the rain, knowing that tunnel was longer than fuck. But I got out. I'm still alive. To where it feels like I shouldn't be alive, but I'm still alive. Like I've alluded to before, I don't know if there's a meaning behind it, if there's reason behind it. It's just life. Something bigger than crazy happened. Yeah, I'm the living dead to some people. But to me, I'm living. I'm alive. I see that reflection in the mirror, and there's love there. You can keep going, and there's nothing holding you back. There's relationships that I have that are, from the past, that we're rebuilding into a better future, into a better present day. At least one of those relationships, there's no reason for, or it felt like there was no reason for that to keep going, but I am beyond grateful and thankful for it to keep going. And that's in an imperfect world. I got scars that you can't see. I got stories that I don't want to tell. And they all took place in the real world. Sometimes a very beautiful place, and sometimes a very fucking ugly place. But at the end of the day, I got love. And love is the answer. Now, little homie, I hope I answered your shit, because like you did before, you came through with a good one. So I think we're going to keep going. And I'm excited to keep going, because this is the finale. Yeah. Peace, little homie. Thank you. I'm glad it finally got delivered, because I don't know what happened through the valley and over the mountains, but it came at some point. Yep. You know what? These motherfucking boots are squeaking like a bitch. Going barefoot, because this is my stage. All right. What I'm going to do differently is I'm going to pull all these topics out. Because from here on out, we don't have outside influence. Read into that. I know what each one of these topics are, because I wrote them. Because this is the finale. Yeah. But I'm going to choose them at random. So we still have fate playing a role in this thing, because this is not scripted. We don't script this. Most I do to prepare for this is paint some things on some curtains and write some things on some cards. And a whole lot of other things. But for the most part, you get it. So with that, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Yeah. Bear with me, it's cold out. When it's cold out, my hand tends to tighten up. So I want this hand to always be holding the mic, because even all these years later, I still have a bit of insecurity about my deficiencies that you can see. But motherfucking legend, so I don't give a fuck at the end of the day. Liar. All right. Let's play a Rack'em Back'em shuffle. All right, let's hope this one works. You know what? I know the best way for this to go. And the best way for this to go is how I imagined it going. Because part of my planning is letting the imagination go. Because that's what my work is informed by. That and a couple of trauma reminders. But coming to a store near you soon, don't worry. The story I never wanted to write. The story I never wanted to write. You know, back in 2020, when it became common knowledge that I had a book coming out, specifically called Live and Let Die, there was a quick, surface level judgment that was thrown my way. And not judgment as a bad thing. This was completely valid. This judgment was, oh, is it a story about you? Speaking about me. Just based off that title, Live and Let Die. I get it. I totally get it. Don't get me wrong. I get it. But nah, Live and Let Die was, that title came out of my love for music. And also, in the context of the story, the sun is always going to rise. The sun is always going to rise, even through heartbreak, through rain. The sun is always going to rise. I never wanted to write that story about me. That story, well, I'll put it like this. Anything I write, reality informs it. So when the day comes that I write about this, I'm going back to a real moment in time. Live and Let Die, fictional. I don't know Taylor, I don't know Sean, but Sean comes from me, Taylor comes from me, and a gazillion other people that I knew. People who were in their 50s, people who were teenagers, people who were just people. That story was informed by the real world. But it wasn't a story about me, though I am very much there in both of those characters. And in that entire world, I'm there. The story about me, that reality, I didn't want to put that to words. I use writing as a forced reflection, but that story about me was too forceful of a reflection. I'll tell you this, it's not a perfect story, and it's not perfect in the context of I'm not perfect. And if I write that story, I'm definitely not going to present myself to be perfect, because that would be detrimental to my talent. That would be detrimental to my gift. No, if I write that story, I'm going to tell you about when I was bad, when I was good, when I was right in the middle, when I didn't want to fight, when I did want to fight. I'm going to tell you everything without telling you anything at all. But I'm not going to hide behind a character. I'm going to give you me. That story, I never wanted to write that story. No, no, no. This happened in 2015. My life was forever changed in 2015. Come 2022, all of that pain, that anguish, that noise, it really got to a deafening volume up here. I never believed in the dramatic senses of, oh, there was so much noise inside of my head, until this larger-than-life thing happened to me, and I was in a shower, standing up, taking a shower. A simple fucking thing, a shower. And I'm on the edge of tears because my knee feels like it's going to explode, and there's nothing I can do about it because I had a traumatic brain injury. That noise, somehow, some way, being 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20 years old, I was able to keep that noise at bay. I was able to move on without focusing on just the noise. And there are some people who are watching this who will be like, he wasn't always happy. Because I didn't have a happy look on my face. I didn't walk around saying, ha-dee-da-dee-da. No, I didn't. I looked pissed off a lot of the times. But I wasn't pissed off in the sense of I'm angry, I'm walking around with a heavy load on my shoulder. I just didn't know how to be happy around the people who I was around because I knew them in a previous life. I could apply that at 14 years old. Who the fuck? It was difficult for me to get through high school, to start college, to keep moving on in life. It was difficult. I'm young now. I'm young, and I'm finally realizing that I'm young. But like I was saying, this happened in 2015. Come 2022, that noise, I couldn't control the sound of it anymore. I couldn't keep it at bay. That noise, that screaming, it wouldn't stop. And I'm a visual thinker. The way I visualize that noise is like this. I was in a vessel, a locationless dome in the middle of nowhere. You couldn't find this place in the real world. I was just there. And I was there screaming to the top of my motherfucking lungs. My voice was fried. It cracked at every single every single belch of that pain. My vocal cords had blood bouncing off of them like you had water on your guitar strings. I was in so much pain in 2022. I was in so much pain. I tried to deal with it, but I found myself in empty corners of the world. Freebasing love in a dorm room and only running when I have to say, nah, babe, this ain't love. I felt awful about myself. I couldn't force myself to smile when I looked into the mirror. I couldn't recognize him. And here's the thing, I didn't get to love myself, to appreciate myself for what I can bring to the table, my talent, my gift, my curse, until I published a book at 19 years old. This larger-than-life thing happened to me at fucking 13 years old. I turned 14 in the hospital. I've told that story. It took me a long time to come to peace with myself. I wasn't at peace with anything in life. I didn't like who I was. I felt like I wasn't allowed to like who I was. And come 2022, it all hit a boiling point. And I needed that screaming to stop. I needed that screaming to go away. I needed to get rid of it. Here's another dramatic that I never had a lot of belief in. Put your pain somewhere. I know that one of these times that I was on this exact stage, I said, write your pain. With no rules. You'll eventually understand why I phrase it in that way. But write your pain. Writing came to me well and long before I was 13 on the brink of death. Writing came to me a long time before that. I was in second grade writing comic books. In first grade, and not even in first grade, in kindergarten and preschool, just running rampant with this imagination before it turned into writing. Write your pain. Write your pain, Theron. Write your fucking pain. Okay. I wrote my pain. Find myself speaking to people who are studying to be doctors when I was only 14 years old because I wrote that pain. Did that again at 15. When I was 17 and going about in the world on my own, I was speaking to people based off of that pain that I wrote, even if I wasn't speaking the words I wrote to them. But I was using my voice. And I needed that screaming to stop. It took me back to those times where I was using my voice. But when the screaming got to a definite volume, I didn't have a voice for myself. When the screaming was so loud, I lost sleep over it. I had no words for myself. When November of 2022 came, I was in a position where corporate conversations had the potential to start being talked about, to elevate, this authorship, this artistry to a bigger stage than I could have built for myself at the time. And unfortunately, those didn't go anywhere. And it was unfortunate at the time. But come the 7th of November, 2022, I found myself at my father's house, and I needed that screaming to stop. I needed that noise to go away. I didn't want to lower it. I needed to get it the fuck out of my head. So I found myself in this bedroom that I had known since I was 8 or 9 years old. And without any prolific statement to describe what I felt, I said, fuck it. And I sat on the floor for like 25 minutes and I started writing that story. That story that was a forced reflection on me because it was about me. I started writing that story. I never wanted to write that story. But from that point on, from that day, November 7th, 2022, I went on for 3 months and exactly 11 days. And I had that story. This story that was born out of trauma, but I swear to God, there is a real, human, beautiful story there. And you think it'd be sad on top of sad, and even more sadness. But no. What I found was this incredibly human story. And in some odd way, I couldn't believe that I was writing it because it was about me. It was the life I had already lived. It was my bad days, my horrible days, my worst days, my great days, my amazing days. And thinking on those best days that are from a time so long ago. And how the past influenced the future, and then what I was writing and how it was influencing my present. And before I knew it, the screaming stopped. I could go to bed on time. I could wake up without a frown. I could look into the mirror and smile. That screaming fucking stopped. That dome was nowhere. That locationless place was gone. I never wanted to write that story, but I'm so glad I did. Yeah. Let's move on to another card. Actually, before I do, part of that story came out of, not even part of it, the reason I finally sat on the floor and started writing that story was because I saw in my imagination there wasn't any creativity. In my imagination, it wasn't an imagination, it was an endless loop of the plague of yesterday. And yesterday wasn't all bad, but a lot of the bad kept playing on and on and on and on because I was in pain and I couldn't notice anything else but pain. And when tomorrow started to turn into a flicker, that's why I wrote the story. That's why I got to writing the story, because I have to believe in tomorrow. I have to be there tomorrow. I have to live tomorrow. I gotta be free tomorrow. Yeah. I feel like that explains it. That doesn't explain why this is, this, but I'll get to that. Don't worry, I'll get to that. Let's go to another one. Alright, I got a few that kind of all coincide with each other to where they can all be one topic, really. So, the exception of this one, and this one, I think these are all, 1, 2, 3. Sweet. The reason Goodnight Thursday exists is because I wrote this story in 3 months and 11 days. And I knew it wasn't going to be like Live and Let Die, where I published that story in the same year that I finished that story, because I didn't want to publish this story. This story deserves the biggest stage, because we're in an era where I think there's a dire need for real stories again. And that's to not take anything away from the fantasies, like a Hogwarts, like a whatever, fantastical story. I'm not one to really consume fantasies, so I can't even tell you much of the main ones like Hogwarts. But anyway, I feel like as a group of, as a species, as a nation, as people, we need fucking real stories. We need real stories. I think we've gotten to a time where we want the sincerity in stories. I watched a movie just last night, and yes, it was a completely fantastical account of a life that can never be, but there was such a deep sincerity to it that I watched that entire movie without turning away for a second. With this story, it's called Left Brain, Right Brain. I didn't want to write something that was just clear cut and dry, a true story. That would have been boring. I wouldn't have enjoyed writing that. And I enjoyed writing Left Brain, Right Brain because of what I found in that story. I found my imagination coupled with my real accounts of what happened. And in that, I wrote and built myself a stage. Goodnight Thursday exists because I went to pitching that book to people that would represent me and pitching it to other people. And the responses I got became an unfortunate, not an unfortunate blessing, became a fortunate blessing. Because the responses I got were, I don't get it. This isn't for me. Which I totally expected, because how much can you see in 50 pages? Every single agent out there wants 50 pages. 50 pages doesn't tell you shit. 50 pages is just 50 pages. This story I wrote is a lot longer than 50 fucking pages. And when I felt that, or not when I felt, when I got those responses, I said, okay, I'm going to do what I tend to do very well and go completely against the grain. So I wrote Inspired by Plight. Inspired by Plight is within the canon of Left Brain, Right Brain, in the way that you're in the room before you enter the play. You're in that pre-show to seeing a show about life that at times is going to feel unbelievable, but I can promise you it happened. I knew that writing 50 poems, or so, I think it's about 50 poems, across the length of 3 nights, to where I didn't write all of them in 3 nights. About 99% of them I did, but not every single one. I knew that wasn't going to be enough. That wasn't going to be a push to really get Left Brain, Right Brain out, because this is a story that is unlike any story I've ever heard of, I've ever consumed myself. And call it ironic, but I'm a writer, published author, but you won't catch me reading books all that often, even though I have a decent to small shelf in my living room right now that hasn't been touched whatsoever. I have more books with my name on it than anything else in there. But anyway, I decided to take what I felt when writing Left Brain, Right Brain and create a visual form for it. And Goodnight Thursday is that vessel, because in Left Brain, Right Brain, it's the theater of a real life. It's the theater of the mind. It is the theater of sadness. It's the theater of pain. It's the theater of happiness. It's the theater of everything. I'm not acting right now. This is me. I don't have a script to follow. You may think I'm staring off onto a script, but I'm not. I'm looking at empty seats right now. There is nobody here other than the person behind the camera and me. If anything, I'm looking at the exit sign or a little green blip that's on the wall over there. I don't really know what it is, but whatever. No, this is an account of a real life. It's rated R for reverie. It's rated R for rage. It's rated R for regret. It's rated R for rage against the light. It's rated R for roses are red. Sometimes. It's rated R for real life. Yeah. But the point of what I originally started talking about was, once the story comes out, there's no going back. There is no going back. I'm not putting the story out myself, and God willing, or as some of my closest friends like to say, Insalahala. Don't quote me on that, but it's got 2 of my closest friends always saying that to me. But I think that means God willing. But life willing, somebody sees what I'm doing. Somebody believes in the vessel of belief. There's no going back. There is no going back. The reason I spell out the word F-A-M-I-L-Y when I'm speaking about certain people is because I can't connect those letters together to form that word when I'm speaking on you anymore. I got to my wit's end. I'm not going to apologize for it, because I never felt a place to begin with. Part 3 of Goodnight Thursday, you can find that in this book. When this book comes out, there's no reality where I'm coming to Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthday party, graduation ever again. You will not like me, and that is not my intention. Trust me, it is not my intention. But you won't like me because I know who you are. I know who you are, and I know you're watching right now. I know you're watching, trust me. I know you're watching. I know. But beyond that, there's no going back, because one thing I felt when Live and Let Die came out was, I don't have, or I'm not going to have any more anonymity. Anonymity, right? Or I'm fucking Finding Nemo. Anonymity, yeah. My story was already out there in the form of a newspaper article, but I knew that interviews were going to come and they were going to ask about my story before they asked about the story I wrote. And at the time, it was only Live and Let Die. When this story comes out, it requires a big stage. It begs for a big stage. I'd even go to say that it's destined for a big stage. There is no going back, and I'm not playing the game of fame or looking for the construct of celebrity whatsoever. I don't want that life. But I know that with the benefit of if, and if somebody takes belief in me and sees what I'm doing and sees how, if we're being open and honest and only being that, stories can move society. Stories can move society. Not just books, but stories can move society. And I have a story, and I'm not saying it's going to move society, but stories can move society. As I was saying, if somebody sees my vision and they take belief in me, there is no going back. My life potentially will change again, and this might be another forever that I apply to my ledger. And that's okay, but just know that I'm not here to play the game of celebrity or the game of fame. I don't want that life. But I know what people need right now, and people need real stories. People need a real story. We need to be reminded that we are people, and we're always going to be people. And if you try to be anything else other than a person, a real fucking person, how long does that last? Segueing on for that, a traumatic brain injury shouldn't bode well for a believer, for a dreamer, and for a leader. And I said I don't see myself as an inspiration. I mean that in the way that I don't operate as an inspiration, but I know that I am. I know that I am. Trust me, I know. I just have a very hard time taking that for myself. But I know that I am. And if a story can move society, if a story can move anybody, that's the greatest reward I could ever ask for, or I could ever look for. But a traumatic brain injury shouldn't bode well for somebody like me, right? Ah, fuck that. I'm not gonna sit up here, stand up here, move around up here, and talk about what should and couldn't. That doesn't fucking apply to me, what should and couldn't. I shouldn't be alive, but I am. But I am. I'm alive. I am alive. I was 14 the first time I ever spoke at a college, a very well-respected college, to add to that. And I was only months removed from being discharged from the hospital. That shouldn't have happened, but it did. So where the fuck this shouldn't fit into my life? I shouldn't get up on stage and have a voice, but I do. And I am. So, what should, what could, I don't want to hear it. No, I don't want to hear that shit. That shouldn't, fuck that. We got if you understand, if you're watching, and if you're listening, and if you're really listening, you understand that there's an absolute madness and randomness to this thing called life. What should? I can't dance in the same light of random. I can't, no. I don't want to hear what should and what shouldn't. No. I'm all set with that argument. I'm all set with that talk. Moving on from that. Not stopping until not stopping until we reach 1 billion. And that's not in the form of money. No, I don't have a Hogwarts. I'm not going to reach 1 billion in a bank account. I'll never reach that. That's not my game. Or a net worth, whatever the fuck, My currency is the currency of people. But you know what? Shooting for 1 billion people is a pretty sizable fraction of the world. I'm not going to only shoot for 1 billion people. I'm going to shoot for one. Maybe it's a specific person in mind. Thursday, Lil Blue. Or if it's you. I know if I can reach you, if I can move you, if I can speak to you, 1 billion is going to come. 1 billion will come. If I can speak to one, I can reach 1 billion. But let's be realistic. Let's shoot for 100,000. Let's shoot for 1 million. Nah, fuck that. What shouldn't? Yeah. This isn't stopping until I reach 1 billion. And even then, nothing's gonna stop me. Nothing can stop me right now. And I got maybe 3 people, maybe 4, maybe 5, I don't know. I don't even know if I have any. But if I can speak to one, if I can move one, nothing's holding me back, nothing's holding us back. This is real life. This is not a game, this is not a fantasy, this is not fiction. No, this is real life, this is reality, rated R for that. Reality. My fucking reality. And if I know you're watching, it's our reality. For the better or for the worse. Because, like I said, I'm not going to present myself as perfect in that story. And I sure as hell did not present myself as perfect in that story. And here's the thing. I said a lot of things. I was using a tool of mine to say those things. And that tool was my liquid sword. What is my liquid sword, you ask? Well, that's my liquid sword. It's my tongue, the voice, the thing that pushes that voice out. It's my tongue, my liquid sword. You ask some people, I said a lot of stupid things. You ask others, I said a lot of good things. You ask a few more than that, I said a lot of sage advice, or yada yada yada, blah blah blah, futter. Nah, I'll tell you everything without telling you anything at all. I'll tell you when my sword got me in trouble. I'll tell you about sand trapped in dark places. I'll tell you why. Not even tell you why. No, maybe I'll tell you why. Unicorns don't exist, but nah. It's coming to a storm near you. Keep waiting. Oh shit, my liquid sword got me in trouble, in troubled waters. But my liquid sword also brought me to being 14, speaking out of college, 15, doing the same thing, 17, going to a school out of state, and then to the same branch of the school, but in the state that I resided in. Having a voice to be played that reached all the way from what I know from a recorded account to the United Kingdom. I've never left America. But there's voice. I'll give you the words. I'll give you the stories. I'll give you the feelings. You won't know anything more. Because I'm not here to tell you everything. Maybe I'll tell you something. Never will I tell you everything. Though this story, left brain, right brain, oh. I'm not one to boost myself up on a pedestal or even really pat myself on the back all that much. Though when I know I can, I know that nobody's telling me I can't. Though I'll say this, left brain, right brain is by far the greatest thing I've ever put to words. I am highly critical on myself, highly critical. Write and live and let die. God, if I had the trash can with the crumbled up paper in it, I would have needed at least 47 of those. I'm highly critical on myself. Left brain, right brain. I finally cried. I cried writing about the times that I should have cried. And in that, I have what I am most proud of when it comes to the written word, thus far. Let me check, see if I covered all of my yapping. I feel like I got everything, you know? Let's go back to when I spoke on agency. I told you that I have the urgency for a portrait of a world with everyday people. If I can do one thing for you that's of any good service, maybe I will acknowledge myself as an inspiration and say, I want you to be a real person, to be an everyday person, a real person, somebody who doesn't live in a fantasy. I want you to accept the good with the bad. I want you to live. I want you to know that you're a real fucking person. I want you to know that love could be your answer. I don't know if it is, but love could be your answer. Love was my answer, and I didn't know that until I wrote it. I want the masses to feel the tide of this butterfly. As somebody who woke up in a cocoon that was a hospital room and knew that staring into the odyssey of life was the only push factor, the only reason to learn to fly. I have this collection of words, this real fucking life. You think it would be sad, but I promise you, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I'll keep going. I'll keep going. I think now maybe I'll look back on this years from now and say things did change. Things have changed. I'm never doing this again. This is it. This is one thing I created, and we've finished. We're done after this. I know that I did this for good reason. That it's so gorgeous that I'm able to be up here with nearly 9 years since, and have real artifacts as such. That story's coming. That story's coming. Even not that, but something like this. And for nobody that knows, this is what I first made with my new hands. This was given to me as an assignment in, I think, occupational therapy when I was still confined to a wheelchair, when I was relearning how to walk. I thought that my life was a dream after what happened. But I know I'm up here right now, holding this tangible thing, this real thing that I made when I couldn't even stand on my own, when I had to have somebody to my side to make sure I didn't fall. And that was nearly 9 years ago. I'm still here. I'm still here. Yeah. I hate the sound of fireworks. I hate the sound of fireworks. My name, Theron Maynard. The H is silent. The H is silent. I'm getting tired though. Yeah. Before I say goodbye, Give me a second. Good night, Thursday. I promise. I'll see you tomorrow.